Hello and welcome back, friends, to episode 21 of the only show on YouTube. This is it. I kid you not. The only show with a capability to read my mind. This is, have I told you about this? The show where I, Brad Comgenic, your host, share with you twice, deuces weekly, what's on my mind. This week, my mind took me back again to the arcades as it, well, likes to do. And once again, it took me to a game that I couldn't get enough of when it first came out. So much so that once again this week, I had to play it. But first, before we go into that game, I need to say an absolutely huge thank you to everyone who has liked and subscribed to the show and commented. Uh, all of you that have told others about the show so that we can begin to grow this community of people who love talking about what's on their mind. And as well, every time you just take that moment just to like and subscribe, you're getting the show into the algorithm. And that's what's most important. It's not about money, folks. I don't monetize, don't need it, don't care. Again, it's a passion project of mine. I just love talking about what's on my mind, and it would be awesome if we had a huge community that we could all do that together. All right, enough. On to Time Crisis 2. You know, there was a moment, and if you grew up anywhere near a mall or an arcade in the 90s, you know exactly what I'm talking about, when the arcade felt like it revolved around only one machine. It had two plastic guns, one red, one blue. There was a giant yellow action text that flashed on the screen as soon as the voice was yelling it at you. And that clack, 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 clack in the feedback, that unmistakable clack of not only the gun, but the foot pedal that you were slamming down on so that you could reload and hide. A totally brand new way of interacting with arcade games for the time. Most of the other games, there was no hiding. The gun games, you just shot off the screen to reload. Today, I want to tell you about the game that made me feel like an action hero and a would-be FBI agent. A game that didn't just take my quarters, it took my full attention and my adrenaline and occasionally my dignity. Again, we're talking about Time Crisis 2. So, you know that some games don't just live in your memory, they live like in your body. Time Crisis is one of those games, particularly for me. I remember when I walked into Aladdin's Castle arcade at the mall and I heard the attract mode voice yell, "Action! Reload!" from across the room. I was like, what in the world is that? And every time without fail, I'd kind of drift back toward it. And it's like the machine had a gravitational pull. It was only action and reload, and I knew it was a gun game, but this game was different. The moment that really sticks with me, the one that made Time Crisis 2 feel like something special, was the first time that I realized that the guns had tangible feedback to them, that the cabinets were linked, and that you had to step on a pedal to actually hide and reload your gun. You know, and when it was co-op, you didn't alternate turns. First you die, then I die, then you die. You were side by side. You were synchronized with your buddy cop. I remember looking over at my friend once, and we both had that same, "Oh, we're doing this" look when we first started playing it. Two screens, two guns, two foot pedals, but one mission. And for the next 3 minutes, because that's about how long we lasted on a credit, we were the greatest action heroes the mall had ever seen. So, what makes Time Crisis special and what makes it special to this day? Well, let's talk about why the game hit so hard, the pedal mechanic, right? Time Crisis 2 wasn't just a shooter, it was almost like a rhythm game. You shoot, you shoot, you shoot, you shoot, you pedal, you slam down the pedal, and with your foot, you hold, you hide, you watch and see if anybody else had shot, and then you shoot, you shoot, you shoot, you shoot, you pedal. It's almost like a rhythm game. And the pedal turned the whole thing into like a dance. It was incredibly chaotic, incredibly sweaty dance, but a dance nonetheless. And the genius of it was simple. You weren't just pointing and shooting, you were timing your bravery. And then there were those recoil guns. These guns had weight to them and they kicked back and they clacked really, really hard. They felt like they were trying to escape your hands when you were using them. Namco didn't have to do that, but they did. And it made the game feel premium, like you were getting your quarter's worth before you even fired the first shot. That made this arcade game truly an experience. And then there was the linked co-op cabinet. That was a magic trick. 2 screens, right? 2 different perspectives and 2 players covering each other. You'd hear your partner yell, reload, before the game would tell you to reload. And suddenly you're both ducking behind imaginary crates like you're in a John Woo movie. You very seldom saw somebody play that game when they stepped on the pedal. They didn't duck themselves, right? It wasn't just co-op, it was synchronized survival. Then there's this whole action movie vibe. Time Crisis 2 didn't pretend to be realistic. It was pure 90s action cheese, but that's what made it perfect. There were explosions everywhere, hostages popping up like they were on springs, helicopters that existed solely to be shot down. It was kind of the video game equivalent of a big summer blockbuster movie that you used to watch on VHS tapes until the tape wore out. You know, here's the part I love. The how this thing came to be story. Many people don't know. Time Crisis 2 was built on Namco's System 23 hardware, which was basically their we're going to melt your face with polygons machine. It was designed to be a showpiece at that time, the cabinet that you heard across the room. And then the Link setup. That was a technical headache. 2 huge CRTs, 2 PCB boards, 2 recoil systems, 2 pedal systems, all synced in real time. And how about those recoil guns? They used a solenoid system, and that was breaking constantly. Arcade owners hated maintaining this system, but players loved it and couldn't get enough of it. Namco knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't just making a game, it truly was an experience. Now, let's talk about gameplay breakdown for a little bit. Time Crisis 2 is structured in a 3-act action movie scenario. Stage 1, you're chasing down bad guys through the city streets as you've been watching, ducking behind crates, shooting barrels that explode way too dramatically. In stage 2, you're in a jungle compound, and suddenly everything's green and dangerous and full of guys who apparently never learned how to take cover, because in stage 2, for some reason, they don't seem to take cover like they did in stage 1. Maybe because by now you need a little break. Stage 3 is the big finale. There's helicopters, there's armored vehicles, a villain who monologues like he's auditioning for a straight to DVD James Bond film. And although through all of it, that ticker keeps ticking. And that's the secret sauce. The game forces you to be aggressive. You can't just wait and hide behind things forever. When that time runs out, so does your life. It's pressure, it's adrenaline, but it's pure arcade joy. Now, Time Crisis 2 wasn't just a game, like I mentioned. It was a moment. It became a staple in movie theaters and bowling alleys and, of course, arcades. It kept light gun games alive during a time when arcades were starting to fade into the background. It influenced later shooters, some VR design, and even modern cover based mechanics like Gears of War. But more than that, it was a friendship test. You learned who amongst your friends can handle the pressure and who panicked and choked. You reloaded at the worst possible time. And then who yelled, "Cover me!" like they were an action hero that needed help. You never heard John McClane say, "Cover me." Time Crisis 2 wasn't just played, it was shared. Now, there are a lot of Easter eggs and some fun facts that I can share with you about the game, too. The pedal was originally going to be a button, believe it or not. Can you imagine how different this game would have been with a button instead of that pedal? The recoil guns were so expensive to maintain that some arcades actually disabled that function, which you could do from the game's menu system. Man, I hope your arcade didn't do that because you missed something. The voice acting is intentionally over the top. Namco wanted it to feel like a dubbed action film. It's not nearly as bad, though, as House of the Dead, but it's kind of close. The cabinet was one of the most expensive of its era due to all that luscious tech that we talked about earlier. And the game's attract mode was designed to be heard over its DDR system. So here's the thing about Time Crisis 2. It wasn't just the graphics. It wasn't just the story. It wasn't even the gameplay. It was the moment. The moment you stepped up to that cabinet. The moment you grabbed your heavy plastic gun. The moment you and your friend slammed those pedals down in perfect sync to duck down and hide. The moment the world outside the arcade disappeared. Time Crisis 2 is a reminder of why arcades matter. Not because of the games, but because of the people you played them with and the experience that you had. If you were lucky enough to experience that linked cabinet side by side with somebody that you cared about, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Time Crisis 2 will go down in history as one of the best light gun games invented. Now, this game did go on to come home to the home consoles, a few of them. But friends, even if there was a pedal to step on, it's not the same as it is in the arcade. You're not ducking, right? There was some cheap plastic little gimmick, and the guns weren't the same. This game was just not enjoyable as it was in the arcade at home. Now, there's a few arcade games like that, but Time Crisis was one of the first that I could remember. Even when I got it at home, while it was fun, it wasn't fun. Fun. Time Crisis 2 goes down in history as one of my favorite light gun shooters of all time. How about you? Have you played it? Did you play the original Time Crisis or even the third one? What kind of tips and tricks do you have to share? Well, whatever they are, hop down into the comments and let us know your thoughts. How did you enjoy the game? How did you find out about it? I've talked to many people who told me they've only ever played it at home. They've never played it in the arcades. Oh, what you're missing. So take a moment, if you will. Let me know down in the comments what you think. All right. This has been Have I Told You About This? And I just told you about Time Crisis 2. Thanks for listening. And never ever forget, reload, or else you'll release that pedal and get shot in the face. Nobody wants that. Thanks for listening, friends. I'll see you right back here later this week for more mental goodness of wherever my wacky mind takes me. We'll see you then.